Hello and welcome to English Voxora. I'm so happy you're here. Together, we'll improve your English with real conversations, natural expressions.
Have you ever watched an English video and felt hopeful for the first few seconds, only to lose everything the moment the speaker started talking faster? I know that feeling. It is like standing on the shore, watching a beautiful wave come toward you. You want to ride it. You want to understand every word. But before you can even take your first step, the wave has already passed. Maybe you recognized a few words. Maybe you understood the beginning. Maybe you even thought, I know this vocabulary. And yet, somehow, the meaning disappeared. If that has happened to you, I want you to know something before we go any further. You are not a bad English learner. You are not too old. You are not too slow. And you certainly are not alone. For a long time, I believed that understanding fast English required a special talent. I imagined that fluent people had sharper ears, better memories, smarter brains. But one day I realized something that quietly changed everything. The problem was never speed. The problem was the way I was listening. That realization felt like opening a window in a room that had been closed for years. Fresh air finally came in. Today, I want to open that same window for you. Not by giving you another list of grammar rules. Not by asking you to memorize hundreds of words. Not by promising that you'll become fluent overnight. Real progress almost never happens that way. Instead, I want to help you see English differently. I want you to hear it differently. Because once your ears change, your confidence begins to change. And when your confidence changes, your speaking follows naturally. So before we continue, I have a small challenge for you. Don't try to understand every single word I say. Just relax. Listen to the ideas. Notice the rhythm. Allow English to become sound before it becomes meaning. You might be surprised by what happens. Our minds often make listening much harder than it really is. Imagine trying to catch every drop of rain during a storm. Impossible. But if you simply stand there, you still know it's raining. Language works in a similar way. Your brain was never designed to collect every word. It was designed to understand meaning. Native speakers don't listen word by word. They don't build sentences like puzzles. They hear ideas, pictures, emotions, intentions. That is why two native speakers can have a conversation in a noisy cafe, with music playing, cups clinking, people laughing around them, and still understand each other perfectly. It isn't because they hear every sound. It's because their brain has learned to expect meaning. That expectation is something you can build too. And it starts with giving yourself permission to stop chasing perfection. Let me tell you about someone I once imagined. A learner named Emma. Every evening after work, she listened to English podcasts. She paused every sentence, looked up every unknown word, repeated everything perfectly. Yet after 6 months, she still felt frustrated. One day, she asked herself a different question. What if my goal isn't to catch every word? What if my goal is simply to understand the story? That tiny change transformed her practice. Instead of stopping every few seconds, she listened all the way through. She smiled when she understood 50%. She celebrated when she understood 60. Without realizing it, her brain stopped panicking, and something beautiful happened. Understanding became easier. Not because English became slower, because she became calmer. Sometimes confidence arrives before improvement, and confidence allows improvement to grow. I would like you to try something with me. Imagine a friend walks into your room. They smile and say, I finally got the job. You instantly understand. Now imagine they continue speaking for another minute. Perhaps you miss a few details, but you still know the most important thing. They are happy. Their life has changed. That is real listening. Real communication isn't about collecting every sentence. It is about receiving the message. That simple shift can remove so much pressure from your shoulders. Pressure is one of the biggest enemies of listening. When we're nervous, our brain becomes busy asking questions. What was that word? Did I miss something? Should I rewind? While your brain is worrying about the previous sentence? The next 3 sentences quietly pass by. Have you noticed that? It happens to almost everyone. The solution isn't to think faster, it is to let go sooner. Imagine you're watching birds fly across the sky. If you become obsessed with one bird, you'll miss the entire flock. English moves exactly the same way. Allow one unknown word to fly away. Another idea is already arriving. And very often, the next sentence explains the first one anyway. Language is wonderfully generous. It gives us clues everywhere. A smile, a pause, a laugh, a surprised voice, a familiar expression. Even silence carries meaning. When you begin listening for meaning instead of individual words, English becomes much less mysterious. Let's try a small exercise. Don't analyze. Simply imagine. I wake up early. The sun is just beginning to rise. I make a cup of coffee. I open the window. The air feels cool. Birds are singing outside. I sit quietly for 5 minutes before starting my day. Did you notice something? Perhaps there were words you weren't consciously thinking about, but I imagine you still saw the morning. You saw the light, the coffee, the window, the birds. That picture inside your mind is more important than every individual word. Pictures stay. Words sometimes disappear. Train your imagination. Your listening will become stronger than your memory. Now I'd like you to think about children. Have you ever watched a little child learning their first language? Nobody hands them a vocabulary list. Nobody explains grammar. Nobody says, "Today we will study the present perfect." Instead, they hear again and again and again. For months, sometimes years. They don't panic because they don't understand. They simply keep listening. Every day, tiny pieces begin connecting. A sound becomes a word becomes an idea becomes a conversation. Adults often expect themselves to skip that beautiful process. We want fluency immediately, but language loves patience. Every minute you spend listening is planting another seed. Some seeds bloom tomorrow, others bloom next month. Both are growing, even when you cannot see them. One mistake many learners make is believing that fast English is actually fast. Most of the time, it only feels fast because your brain is trying to translate. Imagine reading a book in your own language. Do you translate every sentence? Of course not. Meaning appears almost instantly. Now imagine trying to translate every word before understanding the sentence. Even your native language would suddenly feel slow and exhausting. Translation creates traffic inside your mind. Ideas get stuck. Meaning waits. Conversations continue without you. Instead of translating, begin asking yourself a simpler question. What is happening? Not, what does every word mean? Just, what is happening? Someone is apologizing. Someone is ordering food. Someone is telling a funny story. Someone is making a plan. Someone is giving advice. These simple observations teach your brain to follow life instead of language. And language begins following naturally. The next time you watch an English video, I want you to try something different. Don't sit with your dictionary. Don't prepare to pause every sentence. Instead, watch it once, only once. Allow yourself to simply experience it. Maybe you understand 40%. Wonderful. Tomorrow perhaps you'll understand 42. Those 2 extra percent matter far more than you realize. Growth is usually invisible while it is happening. Think about watching the sunrise. You never actually see the sun move. Yet suddenly, morning has arrived. English grows exactly like that. Quietly, patiently, beautifully. Every listening session changes your brain a little. Even the ones that feel difficult, especially the ones that feel difficult. Because challenge creates adaptation. Comfort maintains ability. If listening sometimes feels uncomfortable, it may simply mean you're growing. And I hope you'll remember that the next time fast English makes you feel overwhelmed. Instead of saying, "I can't understand this," try saying, "My ears are learning something new." Those 2 thoughts create completely different futures. One closes the door. The other keeps it open. I choose the second one every single time. And I hope you will too. Because what we're building together isn't perfect English. We're building trust. Trust in your ears. Trust in your brain. Trust that every day you spend listening is taking you somewhere meaningful. Little by little, without forcing it, without fear, you'll begin noticing something remarkable. One sentence that used to sound impossible suddenly feels obvious. One conversation becomes enjoyable. One movie scene finally makes sense without subtitles. And you'll smile, not because you're finished, but because you'll realize you've already become someone who understands more English than yesterday. That moment is closer than you think. And when it arrives, you'll discover that fluency isn't a destination waiting at the end of the road. It's something you've been building with every patient, imperfect, courageous step along the way. I want to share something that changed the way I listened forever. I stopped asking myself, what word did I miss? And I started asking, what is this person trying to help me feel? Language is much more than vocabulary. It carries emotion, curiosity, kindness, excitement, disappointment, hope. When you begin listening for emotion, something unexpected happens. The language slows down, not because people suddenly speak more slowly, but because your attention moves to something your brain understands naturally. Think about your own language. If someone whispers softly, you know they might be nervous. If someone laughs while speaking, you understand joy before you understand every sentence. If someone sighs deeply, you recognize disappointment immediately. Emotion reaches us before words ever do. English is no different. So the next time you listen to a conversation, don't make words your first priority. Ask yourself, how does this person feel? Are they excited? Calm? Worried? Proud? Curious? That simple habit will train your brain to understand conversations as human experiences instead of language exercises. And conversations are always easier than exercises. Now let's practice together. Imagine someone says, I wasn't sure I could do it, but somehow everything worked out. Maybe you didn't catch every word, but what did you feel? Probably relief, maybe happiness, perhaps even gratitude. That emotional understanding is already communication. Never underestimate it. Because real conversations are built on feelings just as much as vocabulary. There is another habit that quietly transforms listening. Curiosity. Children learn astonishingly fast because they are curious. Adults often learn slowly because they are trying to prove themselves. One asks, I wonder what happens next. The other asks, I hope I don't make a mistake. Can you hear the difference? One mind is open, the other is tense. When we become curious, our brain naturally pays attention longer. That is why stories are so powerful. A story keeps asking tiny questions. Who is this person? What will happen next? Why did they make that decision? Your brain enjoys solving those little mysteries. So instead of listening to random sentences every day, try listening to stories. Simple stories, personal stories, travel stories, funny stories, real conversations. Even if you only understand part of them, your curiosity will carry you forward. And curiosity creates consistency. Consistency creates fluency. I also want to invite you to slow your expectations. Not your practice, your expectations. Many learners believe that after 1 month, they should understand almost everything. When that doesn't happen, they become discouraged. But language doesn't grow like a light switch. It grows like a tree. At first, nothing seems to happen. The roots are growing where nobody can see. Then one day, tiny leaves appear. The same thing is happening inside your brain every time you listen. Neural connections are forming. Patterns are becoming familiar. Common expressions begin feeling automatic. One day you'll hear a phrase and immediately understand it. Not because you memorized it yesterday, because you've heard similar patterns hundreds of times before. Your brain quietly connected them while you weren't paying attention. That invisible learning is incredibly powerful. Trust it. Let's try another listening habit. This time, don't focus on the beginning of the sentence. Focus on the ending. Sometimes learners panic after missing the first few words. Then they stop listening completely. Instead, stay with the conversation. Meaning often becomes clearer near the end. Imagine hearing this. Because the train was delayed. Even if you missed the beginning, your brain already starts creating possibilities. Someone arrived late. Someone waited. Someone missed a meeting. Context begins working for you. Language constantly gives us second chances. Accept them. One thing I truly love about English is its rhythm. Every language dances differently. Some move like gentle rivers. Some bounce like music. English often feels like waves. Some words are strong. Others become soft. Important ideas rise. Less important words quietly disappear into the background. If you try to hear every wave equally, listening becomes exhausting. Instead, notice where the speaker naturally places energy. Those are the places carrying meaning. Imagine someone says, "I really wanted to call you." You immediately know what matters. Or, "I really wanted to call you." Now the meaning changes. Or, "I really wanted to call you." Again, something different. Stress changes meaning more often than vocabulary does. So begin listening with your ears, but also with your heart. Notice emphasis. Notice pauses. Notice silence. Silence often speaks louder than words. Now I'd like to introduce a practice that only takes 3 minutes. I call it peaceful listening. Choose a short English recording. Sit comfortably. Don't write anything. Don't repeat anything. Don't pause anything. Simply breathe. Listen once from beginning to end. Allow English to flow around you. This exercise teaches your brain that English is safe. That may sound unusual, but many learners unknowingly associate English with stress, tests, mistakes, corrections, pressure. Imagine replacing those feelings with calm. Your brain becomes much more willing to learn. The next habit may surprise you even more. Smile while listening. Yes, really. Science has shown that our emotional state affects attention and memory. When you smile gently, your body relaxes, your breathing changes, your brain becomes more receptive. Will smiling instantly make you fluent? Of course not, but it changes the experience. And the experience changes consistency. People return to activities they enjoy. If English becomes enjoyable, you'll naturally spend more time with it. And time is one of the greatest teachers you'll ever have. Now imagine 2 learners. The first spends 2 hours studying once every Saturday. The second listens to 15 minutes of English every morning while drinking coffee. Who improves faster? Most people assume the first learner, but very often it is the second, because language loves frequency. Little reminders every day are stronger than heroic effort once a week. Think about sunlight. A tree grows because it receives light consistently, not because one day it receives 10 hours at once. Your English grows in the same quiet way. Small moments matter. Never underestimate them. Perhaps you have 5 minutes while waiting for a bus. Listen. Perhaps you are washing dishes. Listen. Walking outside. Listen. Preparing breakfast. Listen. English doesn't always need your complete attention. Sometimes it simply needs your company. The more familiar your brain becomes with its sounds, the less foreign they feel. And one morning, without expecting it, you'll understand an entire sentence effortlessly. Not because that sentence was easier, because you became stronger. I'd also like you to stop comparing your chapter 3 with someone else's chapter 20. You never know how many years another learner has been listening, how many mistakes they've made, how many conversations they've struggled through. Comparison steals joy from progress. Instead, compare yourself only with yesterday. Can you understand one extra phrase? One extra idea? One extra joke? Then celebrate. Those tiny victories become extraordinary over time. There is another secret I wish someone had told me earlier. Fast English often isn't actually spoken faster. It is spoken more smoothly. Words connect naturally. Sounds blend together. Your brain eventually begins hearing groups of words instead of separate pieces. Imagine hearing, "I'll see you tomorrow." At first, you may hear 4 or 5 different sounds. Later, it becomes one familiar musical pattern. That transformation happens through repetition, not force, not talent. Repetition. This is why hearing common expressions every day is so valuable. Eventually, your brain stops decoding them. It simply recognizes them. Exactly the way you recognize your own name. You don't analyze every letter. Recognition happens instantly. One day, common English expressions will feel exactly like that. Automatic, natural, comfortable. And I promise you, that day arrives much sooner than most learners expect. Sometimes all it takes is staying patient long enough for your brain to surprise you. So the next time you hear someone speaking quickly, don't think, "They're too fast." Instead, whisper to yourself, "My ears are becoming more familiar." That sentence creates hope. Hope creates persistence. Persistence creates fluency. Before we continue, I want you to close your eyes for just a moment. Imagine yourself 6 months from now. You're watching your favorite English podcast. Nobody is sitting beside you. There are no subtitles, no dictionary, no translator. And suddenly, you realize something beautiful. You're not trying anymore. You're simply listening. You're smiling at the story, laughing at the jokes, following the conversation naturally. The fear that once lived inside every English sentence has quietly disappeared. That future is not reserved for gifted learners. It belongs to patient learners, to kind learners, to curious learners, to learners who continue showing up even on the days when progress feels invisible. And I believe, with all my heart, that you are becoming one of those learners already. There is one final thought I want to leave with you. It may be the most important one of all. Fluency is not the reward for never making mistakes. Fluency is the reward for continuing despite them. Every confident English speaker you admire has misunderstood conversations. They have guessed the wrong meaning. They have asked people to repeat themselves. They have forgotten words. They have felt embarrassed. The difference is not that they avoided those moments. The difference is that they kept moving forward. I hope you will do the same. Whenever you feel discouraged, remember this. Your ears are not empty. They are collecting experience. Every podcast you finish, every conversation you listen to, every movie scene you replay, every sentence you shadow, every expression you notice, nothing is wasted. Your brain is quietly organizing everything. It is building connections you cannot yet see. Imagine filling a clear glass with tiny drops of water. One drop seems meaningless. Another drop changes almost nothing. Even 100 drops do not look impressive. But eventually, without realizing exactly when, the glass becomes full. Learning English feels exactly like that. Each listening session is another drop. Each practice exercise is another drop. Each moment of curiosity is another drop. One day, someone speaks to you in English, and instead of panic, you simply understand. People often call that moment a breakthrough. I think of it differently. It is not one magical moment. It is thousands of quiet moments finally becoming visible. That is why I never want you to believe that today's practice is too small to matter. 5 minutes matters. One new expression matters. One short conversation matters. One English podcast matters. They all matter because they become part of who you are. Now I want to give you a different way to practice listening. Not with pressure, with presence. Tomorrow, choose one short English video. Before pressing play, take one slow breath. Tell yourself, I don't need to understand everything. I only need to stay curious. Then listen. When the video ends, don't immediately judge yourself. Instead, ask 3 simple questions. What did I understand? What surprised me? What would I like to hear again? Those questions train your brain to notice progress instead of failure. And what we notice usually grows. Another beautiful habit is speaking to yourself in gentle English. Not perfect English, gentle English. When you wake up, quietly say, "Today feels peaceful." Or, "I think I'll make some tea." Or, "The weather looks nice today." Simple thoughts, simple language. These little moments teach your brain that English belongs in everyday life. Not only in classrooms, not only during study time, not only inside textbooks. The more naturally English enters your daily routine, the more naturally it leaves your mouth. Many learners ask me, when will I finally think in English? My answer is always the same. You don't suddenly wake up one morning with a completely different brain. It happens little by little. First, one phrase appears without translation, then another. Soon, short sentences begin forming naturally. Eventually, entire conversations flow before you even notice what has changed. Thinking in English is not a giant leap. It is thousands of tiny steps taken so gently that you almost miss them. And perhaps that is the most beautiful part of learning. Transformation rarely announces itself. It simply arrives. I also want to remind you that listening is an act of kindness. When we truly listen, we give someone our attention. We welcome their ideas. We allow their experiences to enter our world. Learning English gives you the ability to connect with people you have never met, to understand stories from different cultures, to laugh at jokes from another country, to comfort someone, to encourage someone, to learn from someone whose life is completely different from yours. English is not only a language, it is a bridge. Every new word you understand helps you cross that bridge. Every conversation you follow takes you a little farther. One day, you may travel somewhere new. Perhaps you'll order coffee without fear. Ask for directions with confidence. Make a new friend while waiting for a train. Share your dreams with someone on the other side of the world. Those moments begin today. Not on the day you become fluent. Today. Because every confident conversation starts with one brave decision. The decision to keep listening. Even when listening feels difficult. Especially when listening feels difficult. I hope you'll also become patient with silence. Sometimes, after hearing English, your brain needs a few seconds. Give it those seconds. Learning is still happening. Have you ever watched a photographer develop an old picture? At first, the paper looks empty. Then slowly, an image begins to appear. Meaning often arrives like that. Sometimes, your brain needs one extra heartbeat. Then suddenly, everything becomes clear. Don't rush those moments. Trust them. There will be days when English feels surprisingly easy. Enjoy those days. There will also be days when even simple sentences seem confusing. Accept those days too. Progress is never perfectly straight. It moves like the ocean. Some waves are high, some are gentle. But the tide keeps moving forward. So do you. Whenever you feel tempted to quit, remember why you started. Perhaps you wanted a better career. Perhaps you dreamed of studying abroad. Perhaps you wanted to understand your favorite movies. Perhaps you simply wanted to speak without fear. Hold on to that reason. Let it guide you on the difficult days. Because motivation comes and goes, habits remain. If you spend even 15 peaceful minutes with English each day, your future self will thank you. Not because those 15 minutes were extraordinary, but because they were consistent. Consistency has a quiet kind of magic. It transforms ordinary days into extraordinary years. As we come to the end of our time together, I want you to imagine something one last time. Picture yourself exactly 1 year from today. You press play on an English podcast. The speaker begins talking. Not slowly, not carefully, naturally. And instead of feeling anxious, you smile. You understand the story. You notice the emotion. You follow the conversation. Sometimes you even finish the speaker's sentence in your own mind. For a moment, you forget that you're listening in another language. You are simply enjoying the experience. That moment is possible. Not because you are lucky, not because you are gifted, but because you chose not to give up. Remember this whenever doubt whispers that you are not improving. Your ears are learning. Your mind is adapting. Your confidence is growing. Every single day, even on the days you cannot feel it. So keep listening. Keep smiling. Keep making mistakes. Keep celebrating small victories. Keep trusting the process. One conversation at a time. One story at a time. One peaceful practice at a time. I truly believe that the person you hope to become is already taking shape through every minute you spend with English. Thank you for sharing these moments with me. Thank you for choosing patience over perfection. Thank you for believing that growth is possible. And most of all, thank you for believing in yourself, even if only a little more than yesterday. If this conversation encouraged you, I would love for you to stay with us on this journey. Subscribe to Lumina Academy and join me again for more English learning podcasts designed to help you listen with confidence, speak with freedom, and think naturally in English. Until we meet again, be gentle with yourself. Be curious. Keep your heart open. Keep your ears open. And remember, every sentence you listen to today is quietly becoming part of the confident English speaker you are growing into tomorrow.
Thanks for learning with English Voxia today. Keep listening, keep practicing, and keep improving your English every day. See you in the next lesson. Goodbye.